Hello everyone, I'm Tuomas and in this video I'll go through the story of the game project Ephemeris, from where it all started to the situation we are now in, with an important announcement at the end of the video. Compared to previous videos, this one will have a more personal tone from the point of view of a new indie game developer. It's also more about the whole project instead of the game itself. Making this video is not easy for me. I don't like to mix personal life with the business side of things, so I usually talk only about the game. But at this point, after 4 years on the project, I feel it's important to tell what's going on and how all of that happened. I also want to tell it sincerely instead of just being a voice somewhere behind the screen. So welcome, and if you're interested, stay a while and listen.
Samaan videoon.
Joo. No niin.
I started the game because I wanted to finally make something of my own to the gaming field, which has been such an important part of my life. I play all kinds of games, but especially when I was younger, I played a lot of RTS games and strategy games in general. I have always had my own ideas on how to make something and, of course, on how to improve things. I also like to show these things to others to offer something original.
We have enemy units closing from all directions. Engage and destroy hostiles.
For example, I have had the idea of a different kind of space combat game for many years already. The kind which I would like to see and play myself. This video here is from 2017 and is actually a precursor to Ephemeris. As I finally thought I had a good idea, I wanted to prototype it to see if there was interest in it. I made the first videos about the space fighting game with working movement physics and got very encouraging feedback. So, open-mindedly or boldly or a bit naively, I started to work on the project and quit my day job at the start of 2021. My own serious game project had been in my plans and dreams for many years already, so I was prepared both mentally and financially. I had been in the working life for almost 10 years already. I started on the project and finally I could focus solely on a game I was working on, and my imagination was set free. And I imagined a whole strategy layer around the cool space combat. I also made a plan on how I can keep the scope manageable for me in terms of design and programming. But I would still need help with different aspects of the game. So I started looking for help, and some things I didn't even need to look for as people contacted me too. I also set up a Discord server around this time and people who were enthusiastic about the game started coming in. In the end of the year, a YouTuber, Perafilosoph, included Ephemeris in one of his lists, which helped to gain audience for the game. Soon I already had some helpers around the game. Jesse Heikkinen, a musician I have known for over 20 years, promised to deliver music for the game, and David Liss, an actual writer, wanted to help in any way to create the world for the game. I was and am mathematician by education. I had been a programmer professionally for many years and I had been a gamer for all my life. But I had limited knowledge about the business side of things. So during this year I decided to take different training courses to improve this matter. I went to a startup pre-incubator by Business Oulu, game team info training by Resistance Games, and at the end of the year, the Finnish game incubator by Tampere Game Hub and Alman Edu. These were also very encouraging experiences for me and I got positive feedback for the game. During the training, I of course heard a lot about being an entrepreneur in general, about startup and game dev life, that it's not easy, it's hard. I knew this already of course, but I can do it, I thought to myself. The guys at Resistance Games were very encouraging. They also had actual experience in making strategy games from start to finish and I had the privilege of attending personal coaching sessions with them, with professionals from all different fields of game development. I learned things, got ideas, but in short the feeling I got was that they thought that everything looks very interesting and good, and I should keep going. I knew without saying that possibility of a failure is always there. When you plan for something, you don't make a plan that leads to a failure. You make a plan that leads to the best realistic outcome. You don't focus on failure, as it does not help you in any way. The plan includes steps that are uncertain, but you have to assume that they will succeed and you prepare for the subsequent steps already. As the steps realize and the dice are rolled, you may have to update that plan, but still you plan for the best outcome and not for a failure. At the end of the year I also tested my skills and visited Pocket Gamer Connects Helsinki. Around this time, Reko Järvi, a young talented graphics artist, joined to deliver 2D art for the game, so the pitch deck also looked nice with concept art about different alien species. PG Connects is not the best conference for this type of game, but actually that was the whole idea. I wanted to do some pitching to real publishers, but not to the absolute top candidates I'd wish for. Instead, I wanted a bit of an exercise before seeing them. Of course, this is not to say that there weren't good publishers there. It was just that I didn't think they would be obvious choices for Ephemeris. There were also other factors that affected the project. Some were global and some quite local. The pandemic affected the economy and made life a bit lonely at times. The war of aggression by Russia into Ukraine. Even though we know our neighboring country quite well, the war came as a surprise and served as a depressing reminder of the state of the world. Of course, I'm not the biggest sufferer of the war, but it has affected the economy, making everything more expensive, which has affected the plans. Lastly, in 2021, my father was diagnosed with a very serious disease. I don't want to complain too much in my position, but all of these events, of course, had to happen when it was my time to try the most demanding undertaking of my life. And they have been a considerable financial and emotional burden. During 2022, I had asked Mikko Heinonen, a longtime friend of mine and a game journalist among other things, if he could help me with the business side of things, so I could focus on the game. In early 2023, we founded the company Urdvab. The goal? To get funded, or at least to start serious talks of it during the same year. And by the way, all the people working on the game, Jesse, David, Reko and Mikko, believed in my vision and wanted to help even though I could not pay anything. They would only receive money if the game makes revenue. We had a plan to go to game conferences in Europe, Nordic Game in Malmö and Gamescom in Cologne to pitch to different publishers. Resistance Games coached again by giving a set of lectures with the name of How to Get a Publisher. Business Oulu and Neo Games sponsored the tickets to the events. And we also sought help from an industry veteran in order to fine-tune our pitch deck. The trips and the conferences were exciting and new experiences for me. Malmö and Cologne were beautiful and there were a lot of people at Kölnmesse. On the first day I wanted to go outside for a walk because there were so many people and so much noise, and I was very tired due to sleeping only a few hours in the hot hotel room without air conditioning next to a busy street. But I ended up wandering for another half an hour, I think, before I found my way out of the Kölnmesse complex. The following days were better. I also had some schnitzel and strudel, visited the magnificent cathedral, and of course, both in Malmö and in Cologne we met a lot of publishers. The meetings went well. We were happy about the contacts we made and we felt that we are on the right path. What we didn't yet know was that 2023 would prove to be a horrible year to find funding and a publisher, and that the same thing would continue in 2024. The global economy was in the doldrums and it was and still is reflected in the game business too. We had good starts for conversations, but for some reasons, many of which we don't entirely know, the conversations dried up. I don't want to rant about this too much. There's a good video by NoClip Crew whose experience we truly share well. I'll post a link in the description. All in all, at the end of the year, we started to realize that getting a publisher to fund the game seems to be even harder than we expected. The first dice had been rolled and they weren't in our favor. No need to change the overall plan still though. We had other possible branches in the plan we can still follow. And finally, at the end of the year, something devastating happened. I have been talking about game development so far, and this is not game development related. Game dev is gaming and fun and business, and in the end, that is not the most important thing in life. This was something that I had been afraid of many years already, and on some level anticipated. On Father's Day in 2023, the condition of my father suddenly worsened. It was quite fast and unexpected, and 1 week from that he passed away. My father has taught me a lot of things throughout my life. Not a lot of questions went unanswered by him when I was a child, asking things like why the sky is blue or why oil on the ground has these rainbow colors. I think I have inherited my researcher nature and analytical skills from my father, who also was a programmer and started a long time ago when you did things like punch card programming. my father was the only person in my family that I could talk to about many things so that they were actually understood, like mathematics, convoluted algorithms, and programming all at the same time. So it's needless to say that my life stopped for a while. And I even had thoughts like, why continue working on the game if I can't show the progress to my father like a proud school kid showing off a good test score. At the same time, I was facing the reality that many publishers today are expecting more that we could offer at this point, which I think is a bit unfair with the 4X strategy game, because you cannot make a polished vertical slice in this genre. Or you can, but the game has to be very far along to do that. And even though I think I had done well for a solo developer in this genre and proved myself, it seemed it was still not enough. So things were starting to show their ugly side. If the first 2 years, 21 and 22, were quite good, 23 and 24 were bad. We didn't have a funding deal, but it didn't even feel like we had a proper conversation going on, like I would have wanted at this point. But that's okay. That still fit into our plan, while it made the margin for more failures smaller. The next step was to get public funding, Tempo funding from Business Finland to be precise, which would help us to get to the early access phase. We met all the requirements for it. We even had the needed seed funding from friends and family who also believed in us. I had heard from others that this path is fairly certain if you just meet the requirements. To make sure of that, we collaborated with some consultants who had done this before, and they said that everything looks good. We applied but didn't get the funding. I don't want to blame anyone. What I think happened is that the interpretation of the terms had tightened and it was easier to get the funding earlier. At least I have heard that now later. So we didn't get the funding, not because the project would somehow have a bad outlook or anything like that, but because the organization of the workforce was not proper. And that's, you have to follow the rules. We had to make a change of plans. We would rush towards a demo of the game with whatever resources we had left. A demo where most of the mechanics are at least somehow implemented and work together, and most importantly, where we have proper graphics instead of just the placeholders in the UI, for example. Even though the demo would be lacking in features, it would still convey the feeling and the point and certain unique mechanics of the game better than just slideshows. We would then approach possible funders again for a second round with the demo. So at this point, I'm living the saddest and hardest time of my life. Because of the economic changes in the world, I was losing more money than I had planned, and the bottom was beginning to show. We had not received or weren't about to receive any of the funding I had planned we would have needed to have. And then I needed to work even harder. The margin for error was starting to be exactly 0 at this point. We finished the alpha demo in the middle of 2024, and it's funny that with the new UI graphics and star map graphics in place, it suddenly looked like the game would have made huge step forward in development. In reality, much of the mechanics were already in place. You just don't see it that way with the placeholder graphics, or you don't even want to show those parts of the game to anyone. But still, I felt we were not getting anywhere with publisher contacts. I'm glad that some publishers stated exactly why they had to pass on us, and the reasons were understandable. But with some it felt we were in some kind of limbo waiting for something, I don't know what. Everything progressed slowly and conversations could end with us being ghosted. At this point I started to be quite pessimistic. I felt like, well, it looks like this is not meant to happen. How much should one try? How long should one suffer the stress and uncertainty? How much should one pay the opportunity costs of making nearly nothing from year to year, instead of having a proper and stable job? As a kind of a last chance to find funding fast, we decided to do a crowdfunding campaign. We had this in mind from the beginning as a possible option. Depending on how well the campaign went, we would promise different features for the game. Of course, we would have wanted to include them all, but on the lowest goal, something would need to be stripped from the game. Unfortunately, we can't do a Kickstarter campaign from Finland, which we would have preferred. So we used Indiegogo, which has a smaller audience. The campaign started okay, but soon the backings came to a halt. We have thought about why that happened, and I think there are several reasons. I won't go into them too much, but I think the main reasons are that Indiegogo is not that popular and crowdfunding in general seems harder today than some years ago. There is interest in the game and we have a lot of fans, but many people, for example, say that even if the game is cool and they would buy it, they just don't back anything anymore, because there have been so many disappointments in crowdfunding. One reason is that we didn't make into games media and websites like we planned to. To my knowledge, only one big game magazine made an article about the game, and that was GameStar in Germany. So not even in Finland, where we are located. On some level, everyone always seemed to be impressed about the project, but in practice, the actions did not match the words. A few gaming magazines here were interested and wanted to do articles, but in the end they also chose to ghost us instead. So in the end, we didn't reach the goal we had set. I hope that by this point, if not much else, I have shown my resilience and dedication and passion for game development and for this project, as well as my abilities to make something with limited resources and a small team. Even though it has been a struggle, I like working on the game. I have learned a lot and I have made good contacts and new friends. I have seen at least one part of game development, but you need money. You have to eat and live. I can't imagine what it would be like to be able to just work on a game and have all the resources you need for the game and actually getting paid for it too, instead of worrying too much about the finances of the project and your private life. But you know what? I'm going to find out. Because even if we didn't reach the goals in the crowdfunding campaign, we did reach a lot of people. The main plan was to reach thousands of people with everyone chipping in a little. What happened is the opposite. We reached a few very kind people who share my vision and passion for this genre and who also very much want to see the game completed. We had a good understanding and things escalated quite quickly. And now I can proudly say that Ephemeris is fully funded. Finally, we can start actual development full steam. And for that I want to thank everyone who has helped or supported or encouraged me in any way. Jarkko, Reko, David, Jesse and Manu, who have all contributed assets to the game without getting paid. My fiancée Laura for helping with everything in life, and CEO Mikko for helping with business things, both of whom are also the only people I have vented my frustration to. Joni for law stuff, different game dev courses and lectures in Finland, and to the people organizing them, Jussi Autio to name one, and also others at Resistance Games. My friends and family for believing in me and also for the early initial investments. People in the Discord and YouTube subscribers and all people that have commented on the videos in YouTube or in Reddit. That has been motivating. Thanks to all crowdfunding backers, especially in Germany where we seem to have many fans. Big thanks go to our funders, the investors who wish to remain anonymous and whose contribution ultimately allows us to now continue and even step up the process. After the 2 bad years, I can't wait to see what happens. All the pieces are finally starting to fall into place. Finally, if you weren't already mentioned, or even if you were, thanks for watching the video and for listening to my story. And you are welcome to follow and see what happens next. Thank you and bye.